Join us.
Let's walk the talk.
This is 702.
But I want to start that conversation. I want to start that conversation with Foster Mohale, who represents the National Health Department. As I said, we've been seeing what's been happening with Dudula on the ground. I'm joined now on the line by Foster Mohale, who's the National Department of Health spokesperson. Foster, thank you so much for joining me. I mean, a lot of us are watching what's happening, and it's not just in Gauteng. It's happening in Gauteng, but you then have marching KZN. So it's starting to spring off in different areas where people are complaining just about the high volumes of people being treated at public hospitals. And the answers by these kinds of organizations, these groupings, is to rid the system of the queues of undocumented migrants, illegal foreigners, so they say, in order to do this. It is something that's growing. Is the Department of Health watching it with some level of concern? Are you keeping an eye on what's going on? Because I don't think I hear enough from the department on this issue.
Yeah, good morning, Tshidi, and good morning to your listeners, and thanks for this opportunity. Yes, as the Department of Health, we have consistently communicated our position on the issue of actions by Operation Dudula. We have never differed with them. We agreed with them that the issues that they are raising, they are genuine issues. But the only challenge that we have is the manner in which they express their concerns. So there's no dispute about the burden of the burden caused by public health service caused by undocumented migrants in South Africa. So on that one we agree. But the manner in which they execute their operations, we don't agree, because as the department, we are part of government. We have to uphold the law of the country. Hence, we always say to them, as much as we agree with you, we don't condone your protest actions, because Section 27 of the Constitution of the Republic is very clear. The National Health Act is very clear. So we say until such time that there are legislative amendments, especially Section 27 of the Constitution, there's no way that as the Department of Health, we will deny anyone access to healthcare.
I understand that they had a meeting with the minister. Those issues where you disagree with them, have there been conversations about how to manage them better, how to get Dudula to adhere, at least with where the Constitution stands at the moment, and to make sure that they don't infringe on other people's rights to access healthcare?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I can confirm that we had a meeting, a very fruitful meeting with them yesterday, led by the Minister of Health and the leadership of Operation Dudula. And the good thing about that meeting is that they've got a history of engaging the Minister, Dr. Aaron Zandile, even when he was still the Minister of Home Affairs, because they've been raising similar issues with him when he was the Minister of Home Affairs, and now they are raising the same issues with him in his new capacity as the Minister of Health. And the good thing that he took them through a list of policies and the pieces of legislations that as government we have to comply with. He also advised to say, guys, if you want to address this issue, there are routes that you can follow, but try to follow those routes within the confines of the law in order to avoid complicating their lives. As you remember, a few of them, they were arrested, I think, a few days ago. So that is going to work against them. And he pleaded with them, say, guys, we agree with you, we understand your concerns, but please try to raise your issues within the confines of the law to avoid any arrest or any prosecution.
But what does the department do? Because the other thing is you're responsible for the healthcare facilities. You can make an argument that enforcement of the law isn't your responsibility, that lies with policing. But what's going wrong and the damage that comes with it will be at healthcare facilities. And that doesn't become an issue for undocumented migrants. It becomes issues for all communities in those particular areas where the healthcare facilities will be affected.
No, definitely. That you try to give them an example to say the issue of enforcing the law lies with the law enforcement agencies, and the issue of verification of immigration status lies with the immigration unit within the Department of Home Affairs. And if, as the department, if we dare to deny anyone access to healthcare, and something happens to that person will have strong grounds to litigate against the department. And the good thing is that some of the members of Operation Dudula who were part of the meeting, they are lawyers. They understand the law, as the minister was trying to explain to them, say, our hands are tied. We have to comply with the laws of the country. So, and they understood the position in which the minister was trying to unpack this issue to show that the issues of that they are raising are very genuine, but he pleaded with them, say, please try to raise these issues within the confines of the law and also propose long-term solutions because the protests are not long-term solutions. The long-term solution is to propose the amendments in the legislation, especially Section 27 of the Constitution, which will automatically nullify other pieces of legislation, including the National Health Act, in terms of access to healthcare by everyone. Because the Constitution says everyone. It's not saying South African, it's not saying a foreign national. It says everyone who happen to be in the country.
It almost feels like government is helpless, that begging them to understand what the laws are, that asking them, pleading with them, almost feels to me like we have a government that feels like its powers are limited, its impact is limited. It is now pleading with what was a vigilante group to adhere with the law. That, Foster, for me, doesn't bode well. But then you also have a crisis where people carry communicable diseases. If people aren't being allowed to access particular hospitals, again, it's a question of endangering everybody. Their children also have access to other kids in the communities. In fact, the very communities that Dudula claims to be protecting will also be at risk. What's the solution then there?
Yeah, maybe just to explain the context of pleading with them. Remember, members of Operation Dudula are human beings. They're our brothers and sisters. But we also
just
need
like
to
the
correct
undocumented
them.
migrants, yeah.
Yeah, but we also try to correct them, say the route in which you are taking, it will leave them in danger, it will leave them in jail. That is the context of pleading with them, because they are our brothers. We don't want to see them languishing in jail. Hence I said pleading them in that context, not to say we are helpless, we are hopeless as government. But of course, you raised a very important issue to say the diseases have got no discrimination, whether you are rich or poor, black or white, whether you are Foster, whether you are Tshidi Madia, so especially infectious diseases. So the only way we can control and prevent the spread of infectious disease is to ensure that we avail life-saving treatment to everyone. Because if we start discriminating, all our efforts are not going to bear the fruit. So hence we say for now we will continue to provide healthcare service to everyone who happen to be in the country in compliance with the Constitution, but also as part of our efforts to contain the spread of diseases. Imagine now if we say we don't give them ARVs, and some of these foreign brothers, our brothers-in-law, our sisters-in-law, so it means all our efforts to contain the spread of HIV will not bear the fruits.
All right, Foster, I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much. Foster Mohale is the spokesperson of the National Department of Health, speaking there about Dudula. They're pleading with our brothers and sisters, saying that there are lawyers in the room and they recognize what the Constitution dictates and what it doesn't. To some of your messages coming through on the WhatsApp line, Matsiri, so if Section 27 was clear, it wouldn't be a subject of different interpretations. It needs to be amended. That's one of the things that I question is the fight in the wrong place with Dudula? Should the fight not be in Parliament? But it's one of those questions I keep asking myself. Operation Dudula, another message coming through from Mukhadi Pela in Boksburg says, Operation Dudula is a blessing for South Africans in the light of the irresponsible behavior of the government leaving borders porous. Operation Dudula should now move to other sections of society like education. It's time we have a referendum on Section 27 of the Constitution. Mukhadi, there's a national dialogue aimed at having you say these things so that they can be addressed as well. We're going to speak to Dudula in just a second.
Let's walk the talk.
702.
All right. So as I said, we did speak to Operation Dudula as well. Spoke to their president, Zandile Dabula, about what they are doing And again, for me, if it is not misplaced, taking the fight to the healthcare facilities, should the fight not be in Parliament, take a listen.
Thank you so much, pleasure having us joining you guys.
So obviously we've been watching what's happening around care facilities in the country, but part of what's happened has now resulted in some of your taken into custody. So let's speak about members, Health Act, public violence as well. Just your reaction to that first.
This is a very dodgy case where we've been also trying to understand what really the charges are, because they kept changing. The very first day when they were arrested, we were told that they were impersonating as immigration officers and SAPS members, and suddenly changed, just in few hours, and it was intimidation. And, trying to find out who is the complainant and, do we have a case number? And, that even the IO was very dodgy, couldn't give us information. And later on, I think a day after, we were then told that it's trespassing and public violence. So when we were still thinking, okay, so this is how we're going to, talk to our legal team about the charges, it then later changed to contravention of, the Health Act. But surprisingly, when we got to court, the only two charges that were mentioned there is trespassing and a public violence. I mean, how does one trespass in a public space? But that's a story for another day. Now, we can see that, there is like an effort to make sure that we are disgruntled, we are frustrated, so that we stop what we are doing. And I must say that there's nothing wrong that we are doing. We are not inhuman. Nobody would, take somebody off from bed when they're already being seen by a doctor. So that's the same reason why we say they can be treated if it is an emergency, but after being treated, if you are undocumented, they must hand you over to the law enforcers. But if you are documented, then you need to pay. But what we're seeing in these facilities is that there's no method of making payments. That's why we're saying they must go to private hospitals and pay for the services that they're going to be rendered at that particular place. And it's unfortunate that, in the struggle, we all understand that we will be arrested. Some of us will be killed. When you're fighting for a good cause, that's what happened. Even during the apartheid days, there are people who lost their lives. There are people who are still, limping today because of the injuries that they suffered. It's unfortunately that's part of the struggle, but it shall continue.
But help me understand this. So some of the people that you are turning back, though, Zandile, would be people who are experiencing or suffering from what are communicable diseases, and those kind of situations. It goes back to communities. It spreads to the very South Africans that you say they're protecting, because ultimately South African children are not isolated from playing with children of migrants. We all share space. We all live together. And so you also endanger your own kids to some degree. So those considerations, as you turn people back, is Dudula having those thoughts about what the impact of some of the actions could be on the greater community that you're claiming to protect?
Let's not just limit it to kids of foreign nationals not getting help and the contagious, health diseases that, children could carry and spread it across other children in the places where we live. Now look at it in this way where, a child of a foreigner had received a vaccination and is okay. And there comes a parent of a South African child that needs that very same vaccination and it's finished. Is that not going to be contagious to the other kids as well? It's the same thing. All we are saying is that we want our people to be prioritized. These facilities are public facilities. They should be servicing South Africans as they are the taxpayers. These people, if they want vaccination, if they want medication, they need to go to private hospitals. I mean, we've seen how the syndicate works. They go around different facilities, health facilities, collecting medication just to go and sell them in their respective countries. there is an old lady that would wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning to receive treatment. By the time he gets there, the queues are long. He's cut. The queue is then cut. He's turned back home on that particular day to come back tomorrow. Comes back tomorrow. I'm not talking about a 70-year-old granny. Comes back home. Comes back tomorrow to the same facility. He's then seen by a healthcare worker, whether a doctor or a nurse. He's seen by them. But by the time he gets to the pharmacy, the medication is finished because somebody had collected that medication to go and sell it in Zimbabwe. It's not fair for us South Africans. I think in every time when we do these things, we should also think about an ordinary South African who does not have a medical aid, who goes and queue as early as 5 a.m. in the morning just to receive medication, and they don't get the medication because somebody decides to steal it and send it back home and run a business with our resources.
You were meant to meet with the health minister. I think you wanted a meeting. Did it happen? What was discussed?
The meeting happened, and, part of the discussion is that we really need to rope in immigration. No matter how many times, we tried reaching out to Leon, but, he would not even return our calls. So that's where the main issue is sitting. Because if you could remember that Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, when he was still the Minister of Immigration, he also tried. There was a white paper that people could participate on. And by the time, it's still sitting on the president's desk as we speak. By the time he was supposed to do a bill on it, and then he was then removed from being a minister of Home Affairs, and now he's at the health department. Now, even there's no consistency in that parliament because somebody would deal with such an issue, and by the time he needs to implement that, he's shifted to another role. And, this tells us that there's just no will of dealing with immigration issue, because if it was given to Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, because he was on track with this issue, some of the problems would have been resolved. Health department is just one of it. There's education, there's labor that is actually having a bad impact. The immigration is having a negative impact in all of these departments, but nobody's saying anything about it.
Are you saying the health minister is sympathetic to your cause?
He is. He has always been. Even before Operation Dudula was born, you would hear him talking about the influx of non-South Africans or foreign nationals in our country. And, even before Dudula was born. But obviously, that's probably his own personal views as a person, and he's not being supported by his fellow colleagues. That's the same reason why there is pushback, because if he was supported, then the issues would have been resolved years ago. He's been talking about these things for probably the past 10 years, and everything that he had tried to draft and, try to implement, by the time that it needs to be, at the final stage, he's moved to a different department. So, unfortunately, we have a very arrogant government that will not listen to its own citizens and the outcry out there, because South Africans are complaining about the immigration issues in this country, but the president of this country decides to keep a blind eye and say nothing about it.
If I'm correct, though, you'll correct me. If I remember well, Dudula had gotten into talks or an agreement with the Patriotic Alliance, right? Into the elections last year.
Yes, correct.
Why isn't it that Dudula's taking some of these to the PA so that it can agitate for you, one, in the GNU, but also that it can also put on the table in Parliament bills? Because I do know you've tried to march on SERI, you've tried to march on the Human Rights Commission, and I think both organizations say you're knocking on the wrong door. The issue that you're trying to address lies with the Constitution, and so you're seeking a political solution. You speak about the health minister and what he tried to do. You've got views about the president, but you also have allies, supposedly, in the GNU via the Patriotic Alliance that has publicly shared views very similar to yours. You could also have them agitating both in government and in Parliament. Why isn't that happening?
So you would know that, since the inception of Operation Dudula, it's 5 years now, we have been marching to different departments, submitting memorandum with a list of demands. Those demands are saying that we need to deal with our porous borders. The immigration is a crisis. Immigration is a crisis in this country, and we really need to deal with it. The last resort was when we actually marched to the Union building, marching to the president, gave him a memorandum, but decided not to even respond. So, there's no revenue that we have tried. Patriotic Alliance, yes, we voted with them because we wanted to strengthen, the voice of the patriotic voice inside the parliament. But remember that Patriotic Alliance is also, a political party on its own, and you can't really dictate. Yes, you can have an agreement what you want needs to be done, but once they get there, it's all about them. But that's a story for another day. We're going to have a media briefing soon where we're going to be inviting you and also, unfolding our relationship with any other political parties or alliance partners.
All right, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.